All right, so get the two astronauts way up on the ISS, their ride home, it breaks down, and suddenly everyone's looking at Elon Musk like he's the, space age cavalry. It sounds like a movie, right?
Yeah, it really does have that blockbuster feel to it, but behind these like dramatic headlines, I think the situation reveals a whole lot about where space travel is headed. And, it's not just about who gets the bragging rights for a rescue mission.
Right, exactly. We're talking about Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore, and they've been up there way longer than planned because of Boeing's Starliner spacecraft, which was supposed to be their ticket back to Earth, but it hit a major snag. And we've got some pretty wild claims flying around from a space news show about their situation.
Yeah, so let's break this down. The Starliner was supposed to be Boeing's, big move into the crewed spacecraft game, going kind of head to head with SpaceX's Crew Dragon. But those test flights, they haven't exactly gone smoothly.
Yeah, I remember reading something about propulsion system issues, which are not exactly a, minor detail when you're aiming for a controlled reentry.
You're telling me the propulsion system is what gives the spacecraft that fine control it needs to not just like blast off, but to navigate back to Earth and to land safely. And we're talking about like adjusting the trajectory, slowing down from those orbital speeds. And if that's malfunctioning, it's just too dangerous to bring astronauts back.
Okay, that really puts it into perspective. So Williams and Wilmore are stuck up there 9 months and counting, while engineers are trying to sort out the Starliner's problems.
That's the situation right now. And this is where the story gets really interesting. This news show that we're looking at is throwing former President Trump into the mix, claiming that he personally called Elon Musk to get SpaceX's Crew Dragon ready for a rescue.
Yeah, I remember that it was all over the news, but NASA pushed back pretty hard on that narrative, didn't they?
They did. NASA insists that they're working closely with both Boeing and SpaceX to figure out like the best and safest way to get those astronauts home. And they stress that Williams and Wilmore are not abandoned, like some outlets have suggested they're safe on the ISS. It's just a matter of, getting that return trip sorted out.
But even if Trump's account is a bit embellished, the fact that SpaceX is considered a viable option, like that they're ready, as you said, that's huge.
Yeah.
Doesn't that tell us something about how much the space landscape is changing?
Absolutely. It wasn't that long ago that the idea of a private company being the primary rescue option for astronauts would have been unthinkable. Now it's almost expected. This shift is happening fast, and the situation with the Starliner, it's a perfect illustration.
Yeah, it's almost like we're watching this power shift happen right in front of us. Like, on one hand, you've got Boeing, this, legacy aerospace giant, and they're struggling to get their new spacecraft off the ground. And then on the other hand, you have SpaceX, this relative newcomer, and they're already racking up wins with Crew Dragon and now potentially stepping in to save the day.
It's a fascinating dynamic for sure. And this news show that we're looking at is really playing up that rivalry. They're calling it Space Race 2.0, Boeing versus SpaceX, battling for supremacy in this new era of space travel.
Okay, I love a good rivalry as much as anyone else, but it feels a bit reductive to just like boil it all down to this head-to-head competition.
Yeah.
It's got to be more complicated than that, right?
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's not just a simple case of one winner and one loser. The reality is that having multiple players in the commercial space game, it's a good thing. Competition can really drive innovation. It pushes boundaries, and ultimately it benefits everyone.
But there's also this bigger question kind of lurking in the background. If private companies are going to be responsible for getting our astronauts to and from space, what does that mean for oversight and safety?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's uncharted territory, and it's forcing us to rethink how we approach safety in space. It's not just about meeting technical specifications. It's about ensuring that profit motives don't overshadow the paramount importance of human life.
And this news show is already speculating about the political fallout from all of this, especially how it reflects on the current administration versus the previous one.
Yeah, it's impossible to separate space exploration from politics. It always has been. But now with these private companies in the mix, the political landscape, it just becomes even more complex. And this situation, it really shines a light on how space travel is becoming intertwined with national prestige, economic interests, and even international relations.
It really does feel like a turning point, like a moment where we're redefining the rules of the game. Let's say, for argument's sake, that SpaceX does end up bringing Williams and Wilmore home. What kind of ripple effect would that have on the commercial space industry?
Oh, it would be a huge win for SpaceX, no doubt about that. It would really solidify their position as the front runner in crewed spaceflight. But I think the impact would go beyond just one company. It could signal a shift in the balance of power, giving commercial space ventures even more influence and potentially accelerating the pace of private sector space exploration.
But what about Boeing? They've poured a lot of time and resources into the Starliner. Can they recover from this setback?
It's certainly a major blow, both in terms of reputation and financially, but, they're not out of the game. Yet they have a long history of innovation and expertise. The key will be addressing the root causes of those Starliner issues, demonstrating a commitment to safety above all else, and rebuilding trust with NASA and with the public.
So in a way, this whole situation could be a defining moment for both companies, shaping their trajectories for years to come.
Exactly. It's a high-stakes game, and the outcome is far from certain, but that's what makes it so captivating, isn't it? This is history in the making. We're witnessing the evolution of space travel in real time, and the implications are profound.
It's definitely got me hooked. I feel like we could talk about this for hours.
Me too.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to step back for a moment and consider what this all means for our listener who's been on this deep dive with us.
We've thrown a lot of information their way. So what are the key takeaways they should be thinking about? Yeah, I think for me, the biggest takeaway is how this situation really highlights kind of a fundamental tension in space exploration today. We're moving away from the era of those like purely government-led missions like the Apollo program, that kind of thing. And we're moving into this world where private companies are playing a much bigger role.
Yeah, it's a shift that's full of potential, but also full of challenges. On one hand, you have the incredible innovation and drive of companies like SpaceX. They're pushing the boundaries of what's even possible. They're not just building rockets, they're building like a vision of a future where humanity is a, multi-planetary species.
Right, and that ambition, it's contagious. It gets people excited about space exploration again in a way that we haven't seen in decades. But at the same time, as you said, there are those big questions about oversight and safety. We're entrusting private companies with human lives, and the profit motive can sometimes feel, at odds with that responsibility.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance for sure. And this news show we're looking at, they're not shying away from those concerns. They even go so far as to suggest that this whole situation with the Starliner could be a wake-up call, a reminder that those safety regulations and oversight need to keep pace with this rapidly evolving industry.
That's a really interesting point because while SpaceX has had, a remarkable track record so far, it doesn't mean that every private space company is going to operate with the same level of rigor and attention to safety.
Exactly. And that's where NASA's role becomes even more crucial. They need to strike that balance between fostering innovation and competition while also ensuring that human spaceflight remains safe and respectable no matter who's launching the rockets.
It's almost like we need a new set of rules for this new era of space travel, a way to harness the energy and ingenuity of these private companies without sacrificing the core values that have always guided space exploration.
You hit the nail on the head, and that's what makes this whole situation so fascinating. Even beyond the immediate drama of getting those astronauts home, it's a microcosm of the bigger questions that we're grappling with as we venture further into space.
So for our listener who's been with us on this deep dive, what's the final thought we want to leave them with?
I think it's this. Pay attention to this story as it unfolds. It's not just about two astronauts and a delayed flight. It's about the future of how we explore space. Who gets to participate and what values will guide us as we push further into the cosmos.
Beautifully said. And remember, folks, this isn't just a spectator sport. The decisions we make here on Earth, the questions we ask, and the conversations we have about the role of space exploration, they all matter. The future out there is being shaped right now, and we all have a part to play in it.